Hey, what's going on, guys? Really great to see that a lot of you are enjoying the MOOC reviews. Recently, if you've noticed, I've been trying to put one out once every weekend so that you guys have, I feel like they're really good weekend videos. You can kind of just chill out on the weekend, watch a MOOC review, kind of check out what the MOOC is all about. And so glad you guys are enjoying them. I'm going to try to keep that up every weekend for you guys. And for this weekend, we've got the Mobile Suits Science Fiction Guide. Now, this is a Chinese publication, and there's some Gundam stuff in here, and there's also a lot of non-Gundam stuff in here as well. And this is a tutorial type one, so there's going to be a lot of like tutorial work in progress photos to show you about, especially in this issue, weathering. So there's a bunch of weathering stuff in here if you guys are interested in it. This seems like it's going to be a really great guide for that, so I'm really looking forward to checking this one out. Let's go ahead and get right into it. So alright guys, getting into it, one thing that I will tell you right now is that there's no way we're going to be able to cover everything that's in here, just because if you just flip open to any particular page, well, maybe not that one, but any particular page like this, you can see that number one, there's just a lot of steps there. So this book seems to be quite thorough in showing you kind of demonstrations for different techniques and things like that. So it's going to be difficult for me to go through and say like, oh, here's what's happening in this picture, and then this picture, and then this picture, and this picture. But so we're just going to basically just kind of take a look through this page by page, and we'll just kind of see kind of generally what's inside here. And before we get to that, this does also include this very cool art card, which features the scope dog here on one side. On the opposite side is a Tatooine scene, which we're going to see later on, that is in here a little bit further on. There's more about that. So really cool kind of like mini poster that you get here with the book as well. But all right, here in the front we do have some table of contents, and it seems to be that we have a AK Interactive sponsorship for the paints for this book anyway. There you can see about tools, about the Zaku, the Jim, the Votams, the Sand Trooper, and the Patlabor. So those are going to be our main model kits featured in here. So tools is just kind of information about a bunch of different tools. Again, this is mostly all AK stuff, but there is some GSI Krios or some Mr. Hobby paints and tools and supplies in here as well. And then we're just right on into the Zaku. Now this is the 1.0 master grade version of the Zaku 2 for the base kit for this. I mean, certainly making that old kit look very nice. So here's just a few sample shots here at the front. I should say a few, there's quite more than a few. A lot of really nice example photos there of the finished kit, and you can see a lot of really great weathering here on this. So some really nice photography here showing all different angles and different poses and everything, some of the different weaponry included. They've gone ahead and given it a second shield, and then it's got the Zaku 2 FZ machine gun there, which I don't believe that kit originally came with, and I'm not sure if that kit did. The 1.0 MG come with this gun? I forget the name of this gun offhand, but I guess maybe the 175mm cannon. I thought it had a different name for that gun, but anyway, if it did, that's interesting. Something I never knew about that kit. But you can see some of the different like parts added on to this. Like there on the backpack, for example, just some parts added on. And so they've given it all sorts of different weapons there. You got the Heat Hawk as well. So you can kind of see how some of the different weapons and everything are painted. It's got the mine attached on the back square as well. So interesting. If some of that stuff is stuff that's included with that old master grade, that's quite interesting, something I didn't really ever know. But after we get through all of those photos, now we're getting into the work in progress. So now you can see how it was made. And right here is a look at the kit unpainted. So you can see like that this shield was taken from a different kit, probably the Shin Matsunaga's version, just I guess based on the fact that it's white. Got the spikes and little detail parts are added around onto that. Some detail parts like around here on the leg and up on the shoulder. So starting off here with the paintbrush draw. So I guess it's just kind of just painting the kit, and then rather than doing pre-shading, it looks like this was highlighted to give it the look of pre-shading, the appearance of pre-shading. They did a highlighting, which is kind of the opposite technique, but it gives you the same basic result. You can see some of the different painting techniques used here for the backpack and the like dark gray parts, like for the feet, the chest, and then for the weapons here. So a mix of just airbrush painting and then some masking, and then also hand brushing, painting in some of the details there just by hand brush. So very interesting. Some parts of the frame and some of the internal details of the backpack, painting all that up there. Picking out some of the panels for painting in like a little bit different color. So it's a mix of using airbrush for like the main colors and then painting in some of the panels just by hand brush there. So quite interesting. Painting some more of the details around on the mines and weapons there. Then laying down some decals and painting onto some of the decals to kind of give them a kind of faded look, and then onto the secondary shield. Interesting how they're painted the secondary shield differently to make it look like, it's taken from a different mobile suit. So it's going to be painted in a different way just to give the shield a different kind of look to it. So here are some of the scratching effects and stuff. I think this is with using that Worn Effects acrylic fluid there, it looks like, maybe from AK. Then going in with a pin wash or pen aligning, kind of as we typically know it, and then some filtering on that. So you can see like the dot filter kind of all over it, and that's kind of spread out to give you your nice color filter, and some particular filtering around some of these sections here on like the head, the arms, to give you some nice gradients there with some of these effects. So quite interesting, and yeah, very detailed in terms of like showing you. Now it's getting into some of the like hand painted chipping and everything, the darker and lighter colors of that. So a really great guide for showing you really step by step, and it seems kind of more thorough than a lot of the Japanese ones from like Hobby Japan or something like that, where they'll be a little bit less thorough, I guess is the way to say it, in that they'll show you kind of step by step. But this one really seems to show you like, okay, here's the products used, here's the exact step of kind of like making these marks on there for the streaks, how to pull the streaks down and things like that, just using more photos to like make sure that everything is really covered in detail, seems like, which is nice. So that's very cool. All right, then moving on to the local type Gym here. This one is also using the 100 scale master grade kit of the ground Gym. There you can see it's got the 180mm cannon from the ground Gundam. Very cool detail of adding the lights up to like the top of the shoulders or the top of the backpack there, and just some general customization around this. So once again, we've got our feature photos here at the start to show you kind of what the finished part looks like. And this is quite interesting, all the different modifications and stuff. I like how all like the little hook details and things are little nice little red highlights around, and it generally just kind of like sandy tan brown kind of color scheme that doesn't really have a whole lot of like color popping to it necessarily, other than just the little red hooks and everything around everywhere on it. So it's quite interesting detail. The lights appear to be just a digital effect added onto there. It doesn't look like those are actually like LED lights or anything in there. I believe that's just added digitally after the fact, but still looks pretty cool nonetheless. And it's a cool effect. You can see them like unlit up there on that. So I do really like that. It's a quite interesting idea, and it makes sense and really fits with like the 8th MS team vibe, I feel like. So here we can see the unpainted version of that, and you can really tell. I love to see custom builds like this, like where all the modification is done, but it's still yet unpainted. So you can really see, what's stock and what's newly added for this. So you can see it's got a few different parts added here and there, and plot plate details and different added on details all over the kit. Even little like claw bits there on the foot, kind of really sell that kind of desert look to this. And again, really fits with the 8th MS team vibe overall. So gonna go a little bit faster here through this section, just because, like I said, there's a lot to go over if I were to actually go into details like what's exactly happening in all of these pictures. But a lot of really nice, again, really thorough step-by-step coverage about this. So here's about the lights, for example. They're using a film. It's like a chrome plating, like sticker or film, essentially, sticking that on there so that when you have the clear parts over that, it's gonna look kind of nice and bright. So going through all the painting, hand painting, again, it's kind of following the same steps as with the Zaku, using the airbrush and hand painting, a kind of mix of different painting techniques for, depending on which section or which detail needs to be painted, painting it in different ways. It's like this vent, which is like a white vent there, and like the side of the refrigerator backpack, that's just hand painted. A section that honestly would have been pretty easy to just mask and just airbrush, but you gotta just do kind of whatever seems the best and most convenient method at that point in time. So again, you got the dot filtering going around on that. All very quite useful techniques. Oh, and this is also using some Vallejo paints, so not exclusively AK Interactive paints here used in this book. So that's also cool to see kind of some different options, which is great for us modelers, because depending on where you live in the world and just kind of depending on any particular point in time, you may find that some paints are easier to get your hands on than others. So it's always nice to see different options, or like you can get similar effects, if not the same effects, from different products from different companies, whatever. So it's nice to see multiple different kinds of examples. All right, then getting into the scope dog here. This is the Bandai 120 scale. Interesting, because at first glance, just looking at the cover photo, I assumed this was the 1/35 scale wave kit. But yeah, I've just not built the Bandai one, so I'm not familiar with it. But yeah, this is definitely the larger 120 scale Bandai kit, which is, as I understand it, similar in size to a 100 scale master grade Gundam kit. So kind of the theme of this overall, just in terms of the size of all the kits covered in this book, seem to be kind of that same kind of 1/100 scale general size, even though this is different scale, but similar size model kit to that. So really cool painting and really cool effects of this on here, of like the graffiti and different numbers and things painted on to the model. With this being in 120 scale, was the first two, the Jim and the Zaku, are in 100 scale. This one being in 120 scale, you have to handle the painting and the weathering and everything a little bit differently, because you're working with the similar size model kit, but the actual effects of things painted onto the machine and like how weathering is going to appear on this scale is going to be a little bit differently. So it's all things that you kind of have to take into consideration when doing weathering. You have to take the scale into consideration. So like chipping on this kit, you would have to do your chipping like larger than what you would want your chipping to be on a 1/100 scale Gundam kit, for example. If you did chipping this big on a Gundam kit, it would look out of scale. It's way too big. So hopefully that makes sense to you guys. I'm sure you probably can follow what I'm talking about, but trying to be clear about what I mean with that. So again, now getting into the work in progress, here's the unpainted kit. You can see a bit about kind of how the kit was weathered up before even getting to the painting. So like some of the damage that was just done to the plastic, and then some different effects added, like using putty onto the kit to give it more texture. Again, the kind of thing that works really well in this scale. It doesn't work quite as well with Gundam kits, just because you're working in like a much smaller scale, 1/100, 1/44 scale. It's harder to get that same kind of effect in that scale with 1/20th or 1/35th scale. It's easier to do that kind of effect. So in this case, there is some pre-shading going on here, as you can see. Pre-shading on that, and then giving it kind of this desert yellow color for the main colors here for this. Airbrushing for that part, getting into then some of the chipping and texture painting. You can see chipping away a lot of that paint, so layering the paint and then chipping it away, painting in some of these really small details inside the cockpit right there. So all your cockpit detail painting and everything, and painting details, hand painting stuff like the kills, what does that say? Kills, scope dog. Anyway, love kills, I guess. Sort of just interesting details to add around onto the kit. So here we got basically what it's going to look like then after all the base painting is done, and you can see there is some weathering in like the way that some of the paint is like physically chipped off. But this is basically how it's going to look unweathered before they get in and add some of the weathering effects. So then this next section is just all the weathering effects by using, again, kind of filtering, and then I'm guessing we're going to see quite a large array of different kind of weathering effects done with this. Painting on different types of chipping, using a sponge for different types of chipping, painting on some different scratches and things like that, hand painting scratches around on different sections where, you know, would typically get more scratches on them. So that looks really cool. And I know that there's a lot of really great videos on YouTube already that, you know, illustrate this type of weathering. But if you're the kind of person that likes, you know, to have like actual physical books, that you can hold and that you can refer to, and you can look back at easily, without having to worry about scrubbing a video or something like that, or looking for like, where's that video I saw. It's nice to just have these kind of books on hand to refer to for different kind of weathering techniques and things like that for something like this. So a lot of really cool stuff in here so far. Now let's talk about some Star Wars stuff. This is the Bandai 1/12 scale Star Wars model kit here of the Sand Trooper, and so here we've got all our finished photos here at the start. So again, this is drastically changing the scale, going even larger scale. And then the model kit's still going to be generally about the same size, but now we're in 1/12 scale. So again, the way that you're doing weathering on something like this, again, is going to change because now you're in a much different scale. I've also got this Dewback model kit, which is certainly not from Bandai. Bandai hasn't made one of those. I'm not sure where that's from, but I would guess that that's maybe some other model. I'm not sure who that would be made by, but here's the unpainted model kit. And so there's going to be, again, a lot of different things used here for like some of these joint covers and things like that, using this kind of plastic, it looks like, for the joint covers, just to kind of make it look more convincing as a 1/12 scale suit. And then we can get into kind of, you can see how certain parts of it are painted. So again, starting off with some airbrush painting, and then detail painting with a hand brush, and then getting into the weathering on that with a brush, painting the shoulder part there, and then painting the backpack, painting some of the weathering, the scratches and things around on the backpack, on the rifle, and then some more weathering, just dirtying it up, getting it all dirty and sandy looking. Very cool. Looks like we've also got some weathering here using some pastels, and I'm not sure if we've seen that in any of the previous builds yet, or if this is the first time that's showing up, but certainly in this scale, using pastels is something that you would see pretty commonly for like a larger scale model kit, something like this. And it looks like the Dewback here maybe was not a model kit but a toy, so it looks like it's like an articulated, like, moving toy. And what they did was just to like fill in all the joints and everything to make it like a solid form, so it doesn't have these gaps there between the joints, to make it look like just one solid thing. So fill in the gaps, give it a coat of primer, and then give it a coat of paint, and then like a camo paint. I guess it would be camo, but it would be like a pattern, a skin pattern there on the Dewback. And it looks a little bit differently. I feel like in the movie it's kind of like a more greenish color, but this is like kind of a different brown and white kind of color scheme here for this. So interestingly, a little bit different color scheme. And then redoing some of the details, like for the kind of like harness bit on there, remaking that, it looks like, and just some of like repainting the saddle kind of parts and everything on that. All looks quite interesting, painting the eyes and painting in some of the details and everything. So it's cool that we can see like weathering and painting techniques for something like a 1/100 scale like Gundam kit, and then something like this, which would be sort of similar to like how you would paint like a dinosaur model kit, for example, but obviously a Star Wars dinosaur in this case. So that is awesome. And then our last one here is going to be the LAPD SWAT version of the Patlab board. This is the Bandai 148 scale kit. So again, this is a master grade kit, I believe, or is it labeled master grade? I believe it is actually a master grade kit, but either way, it's going to be the same, again, size. So it's going back to the same size of like a Bandai master grade Gundam kit in terms of the size of this. It's noticeably much less weathered in this case. So it seems like more of like a clean build, still like super detailed. And I actually have this kit and I've been wanting to build it for a long time. It's been in my backlog forever. I've not ever gone ahead and actually built it up, but it looks like such an awesome kit, so I'm definitely gonna have to build mine up at some point. But let's see here, once we get into like kind of the more detailed shots of this, if we can see if it's actually weathered all that much. I'm sure it's got like a little bit of filtering and everything on it, just to kind of give it a little bit of more kind of realistic tone, but there's not a lot of like any noticeable like scratches and things like that, kind of other weathering that you would see kind of quite typically. So here's the kit, unpainted, just built up like that. It's obviously white. It's only this version that's painted in dark. So he's got the painting stages here at first, and then the detail painting, of which there's quite a lot of detail painting in this build, as just there's lots of little details around everywhere on it. There on the head, for example, you can see here in like parts of the torso. So there's a bunch of little details, and this is all again painting with Vallejo colors. and applying some decals onto that, all the decals, and then some more painting there on the weapons. It looks like maybe just a little bit of like pin wash around on everything. A little bit of not dry brushing, but using some of these pigments to bring out some of like the highlights of the details around on the weapons there in particular, and then around on the suit. So really very minimal weathering in this case, just using pigments essentially just to kind of bring out some of the raised details around on it. And that's it. So quite a short section here at the end, just like because again the focus of this is on weathering. There's not a whole lot of weathering on this particular model, but still a really cool build there of the Patlabor, and really makes me want to build mine. So there's just some credits there at the end, and that is it for this Mook, guys. A really cool one. I was really glad to finally take a look at that. I'm gonna have to spend some time with this maybe over the weekend, really look closely at some of these different weathering techniques. A lot of this stuff is stuff that's familiar to me, that I've seen before, but not necessarily things that, you know, I have a chance to exercise very often or try out very often. So it's stuff that I certainly could use some more practice on, and so I hope that this was interesting for you guys to take a look through this Mook. If you're interested in picking up some model kits, tools, paint, supplies, like the stuff that we've seen here in this book, you can check the link down in the video description down below this video. The USA Gundam Store, we've got all sorts of different stuff that you guys may find useful for experimenting on your own model kits. That's going to do it for this Mook review. Let me know your guys' thoughts in the comment section below. Which was your favorite build from this? I gotta say, probably the Scope Dog for me. It's a really cool build there, really nicely done. But of course, the Gundam model kits in here were also really quite nice. That gym was really cool. So let me know your thoughts. And as always, guys, thanks so much for checking out the video. And if you'd also like to like and or subscribe while you're here, that'd be greatly appreciated. But until next time, hope y'all have a great day. See you guys later. Bye-bye.